What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. If you are new around here, welcome to the show. My name is Jared Hamilton, and I am your host, and I am really, really grateful that you're in the house listening today. I really appreciate that. Now, today, actually, sorry if I'm sniffly, I had a big allergy issue yesterday, and I just finished a sneezing spell about 10 seconds before I hit play. I was actually in the middle of recording already, but I messed up the title. I started sneezing. I'm like, you know what? We're just going to start this one over. So if I'm sniffly, that's why. But otherwise, I'm really glad that you're here. Now, today is a really cool episode because we are going to actually bring back a really old episode. I'm basically going to bring back one of the most popular episodes we've had to date. And ironically, like, it surprised me that this one had some of the highest views that we've had on the show. Because the other day I was looking at all the old episodes, like in terms of like the analytics, like what, got the most downloads, what performed best, what got the most amount of feedback, just because I want to bring you guys the best possible and most amount of value I can. So if you have feedback, I would love to hear it. But otherwise, like at the end of the day, that's what I was doing. I was just looking back at the old stuff. And there was one episode that stood out amongst almost all of them, like head and shoulders above all the episodes. And it was simply my take on how to calculate your calories. Because, generally speaking, like the way that me and my team do this for clients is a little unorthodox. It's a little different than most other coaches. It's a little different than what most people do. But it's also why we get people to get results better than most people, and then easier, more sustainable, really less mentally strenuous way. So I basically thought I'd tell you about it. Like, come on here and just talk about how we calculate calories, how we dial somebody in terms of where their nutrition should be from the numbers perspective. But here's the thing, but without apps, without like MyFitnessPal, without weird formulas, and without like all this second guessing. So this way you have certainty when you execute your day-to-day and the actual nuts and bolts behind how to calculate and where your numbers should be at and where everything should be on the day-to-day, and some of the common problems people go through, some of the biggest misconceptions, some of the worst beliefs you can have, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to get into. So I'm really excited. So if you've been struggling with, where your calories are at, or, feeling like it's the wrong number, or not even sure of how you do it the right way, because everyone has their own opinion. Now I am fully aware that my opinion is going to go into this pool of other opinions, but this is also why you shouldn't listen to a dozen different people, because then you're going to get a dozen different answers. So for those of you who give two shits about the way that I do my thing and how we teach this, I figured I would bring this episode back to life and kind of walk you through how we dial someone's calories in, and how you can calculate your calorie deficit in whatever numbers you're needing, but without all the stress, without all the anxiety, without all the uncertainty, and without all the apps or weird formulas. Does that sound fair? So now, before we get into that, I definitely need to give a big thank you to our sponsors. Sponsor number one is Flexpro Meals, and I'm probably going to have a Flexpro meal today after I'm done with this. So in the world of guys of convenience and just life being unpredictable and saving money and all of that stuff, Flexpro is fits so many of these slots, at least for me in my life. Flexpro is a meal prep or a meal delivery service. It's great because basically for me at all times, I have Flexpro meals. They're ready to go in my fridge at all times. I don't eat now here's the thing. I don't eat them every single meal, but there are so many times where I would get caught in a drive-through. So many times that I forgot to prepare food. So many times that I didn't feel like eating what's in the fridge right now, right? But having these chef-made meals that come to my door every month, that are ready to go, that are made by a chef so they taste amazing. They are dialed in with, from the nutrition standpoint, with where calories and protein and just all the macros should be at. And they taste fucking glorious, if I haven't mentioned that already. It's just a no-brainer. It's funny, people ask me, private message me, they're like, all right, Jared, tell me really what you think about Flexpro. How do they taste? And I'm like, they are fucking fantastic. I'm not going to just bullshit you guys. Of course there are meals that, just like food preferences, I don't care for as much, but otherwise, they're fucking fantastic. That's why I continue to use them every day and to have them as a sponsor of the show still. So massive thank you to them if that's what you're into. Or if that's kind of remotely any interest at all, where, you want to save some money and without having to go through the drive-through all the time. If you want to just have meals ready to go that are in line for your goals so you don't get derailed as easy, it's just a no-brainer. So, but I do want to save you some money if you end up wanting to check them out or to get anything from them. I do have a code Hamilton Trained at checkout, and it'll save you 20%. So especially with the discount code, it's even like more affordable than fast food. Like a month ago, I was out and about and I didn't have a meal with me, and I was getting hangry out of nowhere, and I went through ran into Chipotle, just got like a bowl, and that motherfucker was like $16. I'm like, I miss my Flexpro meals. Not only is it going to be more protein, less calories, but it also would have saved me $16. So anyway, second sponsor is Firstform. Again, I'm rocking their clothes just because I love their fucking clothes. Forget their supplement. Like, don't get me wrong, their supplements are great, but like, I just love their clothes by themselves. But no, Firstform is absolutely amazing, guys. If you are in the world of supplementation and you're wanting to just fill any of the little holes that you may have, or any of the areas that aren't going so well, where supplements can fill that need. And if you aren't sure what that is, or if that's you at all, I'll have a video linked in the description on basically my take on supplements for fat loss and for your health goals and fitness goals and things like that. What's appropriate, what's not, when to use them, when to not, that kind of thing. Because like you guys know, I'm not like this huge supplement pusher, right? It's just not who I am. But I absolutely think there's a time and a place for them. You know, whether it be something basic for most people, it's like they suck at getting their protein in, and so a really good protein powder that tastes really good that you can take consistently is key. Most people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, so a good multivitamin is like the cheapest thing you can do to help with your goals. If you're like me, you got fucked up joints and they get banged up all the time, so sometimes things like a joint compound, fish oils, things like that can be really helpful. Your recovery might suck, so something like creatine may be helpful. Those are actually just a few of the things that I take. But that's the thing, is there are so many little holes they can fill. And there's so many different areas like that. So if that's your cup of tea, I am one of the biggest fans in the world of Firstform, not just from the product standpoint to like everything from how they conduct business, the quality, the accuracy, all of that stuff. And then what the company even stands for, their core values, all of that. So it's a no-brainer. So I do want to save you some free shipping though. So down in the description below, I have a free priority shipping link. So if you do want to get anything and don't feel like paying for shipping, go hit that link below. But otherwise, let's get into today's episode. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the episode, or to the show. Whether you're watching this on something like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, whatever, be sure and subscribe. But also, if you are into watching your podcasts, every episode I have now on YouTube. So over on my youtube.com/Jared Hamilton, links below as well. Excuse me, I have all the all the video of these episodes uploaded there. So if you just would rather watch it, or especially when I have stuff with guests on, it's really cool. So definitely check out that and be sure to subscribe there. And if you haven't already, guys, I'm telling you, I bring you some of the best value ever that you can find. Like, I take a lot of pride in my free content is way more valuable than most people's paid content. So the one thing I ask is for you to either leave me a review if this is helpful, or just send this to somebody. Share the content so you're not the only one getting value, because you are literally one share away from like quite literally changing someone's life. Whether that's just sharing it on your Instagram story, whether that's sending it to a friend that you got thinking about while listening to this, that you guys were talking about the thing last week, or whatever the case is, whoever you're thinking of right now, send it to them. That's the one ask that I have. So, all right, let's get into today's episode. So we're talking about, I'm just looking at my notes here. So if you're watching the video and you see my eyes going back and forth, I'm just making sure I stay on track. So here's the thing. In the world of how to calculate your calorie deficit, we're talking about how to do it in the most easy way possible, so simple way possible, in the most accurate way possible. But there's a few things, like when it comes to this, that a lot of people get wrong. So here, I figured it'd be helpful if we talked about my issues with the way most people calculate their calorie deficit and their numbers. So here's my thing. There's two big issues I have with how people normally go about tracking calculating their calories and things like that. Number one is they have no idea what they've been eating or how much. Like most people who say, Jared, I don't know how to calculate my calorie deficit. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, how much have you been eating? They're like, I don't know. And then they just plug their numbers into MyFitnessPal, or they do the whole body weight times 10 to 12, or they hop on 18 different apps, or they go to like caloriedeficit.com. I've never been to that website. I just threw it out there. Whatever it may be. But the problem is most people are oblivious to how much they're eating up until this point. Let's compare this to something else. If, I don't know, if you're a financial advisor for me, and I say, hey, I want you to help me save as much money as possible. And then you go, okay, how much do you make and what are your expenses? I go, oh, I don't know. Can you help me? Of course not. Would it do any good if you said, okay, well, here's some random numbers. Would that help me? Well, of course not, because you don't even know if it's contextually relevant to my situation. It's the same thing here. If you don't know how much you're eating, you don't know what your consistency is like, you don't know any of that stuff, you're setting yourself up for failure because you don't even know if it's going to be accurate or not. You know what I mean? Like, this is what blows me away, why so many people fuck up their whole situation is they'll be eating, let's say 3,000 calories a day, but MyFitnessPal tells them 1,200. So they go from 3,000 calories a day to what's that, an 1,800 calorie deficit. And then they wonder why they get starving and they fall off. You see what I mean? And so I'm going to get into like how to go about this the right way, but this is why so many people fail. Most of you listening to this who are so easy to like hop on to whatever platform that's going to tell you your calorie deficit, or hop onto MyFitnessPal or whatever it may be, or the Weight Watchers app or whatever. The issue is you are more than likely oblivious to how much you're taking in consistently, right? You may be sitting there going, well, Jared, I hardly eat. I eat 1,000 calories a day, which is terrible. But then like you're missing the fact that, every other weekend you have a binge session, bringing your weekly average way up. You see what I mean? So that's my first issue. My second issue with how most people go about calculating their calorie deficit is they think it's written in stone by God. You have to understand, guys, any single calorie deficit calculation is a rough estimation. It's an educated guess. When you hop onto MyFitnessPal and it tells you eat this, if you say, Jared, what should I eat? It's the same thing, or it's an educated guess. I think mine's gonna be more accurate because of how we go about this. But you see what I'm saying? The best analogy I've ever heard is it's getting you on the target. Like if you're like shooting a target or you're doing archery or whatever, your calorie deficit estimation in a formula is going to get you on the target. But then by process of what results are happening, being consistent, now you can dial it into the bullseye. But your estimation isn't the bullseye. Your estimation is ideally somewhere on the target. Then you can adjust from there. You will never have a world of calorie deficit stuff without having to adjust. Everyone wants the magic formula that's going to give them the exact number they need every single day. And it's going to get you on the target. But for most people, this is why you have to be constantly adjusting and being consistent with certain things, so your adjustments are good enough. You see what I mean? This is why most people, though, go wrong and they think their calorie deficit number is written in stone by God. Well, no, MyFitnessPal told me 1,200 calories, or, this trainer at the gym told me it's got to be this. And it's like, my number is 1,800, not 1,801, not 1,805. It's like, chill the fuck out, Becky. Like, that's not how that works. Like, yes, we need to have a level of consistency with numbers to make any educated decisions, but your calorie deficit number is not written in stone by God just because MyFitnessPal said it. Those are my two issues with how most people go about this. So here's a few other areas, because I'm trying to, with this episode, giving you as much context as I can to really hammer home how to go about this the right way. So let's talk about now where apps go wrong. Because again, most people, I love apps. I think apps are some of the greatest hacks you can utilize in your weight loss journey. But most people take the apps like MyFitnessPal, Weight Watchers, Lose It, Chronometer. There's a million of them. There's literally a million apps. Here's where most people go wrong. Number one, we'll just pick on MyFitnessPal because it's like across the board the most, I think, used in the world, right? Here's where apps go wrong with calculating your calorie deficit. Number one is they let you choose how much weight you're going to lose. You know what's crazy? The amount of it cracks me up. I'll see different apps, whether it be MyFitnessPal, Lose It, whatever, because when it's asking you the questions like age, weight, gender, height, occupation, activity level, they'll then ask, how much weight do you want to lose? Do you want to lose a quarter pound a week? Do you want to lose a pound a week? Do you want to lose 2 pounds a week? I've even seen 5 pounds a week. I don't know any normal person who has an Amazon Prime account that's going to say, oh, I want to lose a pound a week when it gives you 5 pounds a week as an option. Out the gate, they're fucking you. Out the gate, it's setting you up for failure. Because it's not practical. In no realm am I comfortable with losing 5 pounds a week. To be honest with you, if we have a client that's losing, 2 pounds a week, that's red flags. That's losing too fast. And then we actually make them eat more calories because it's way too fast. Losing 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds a week is right up there with in the same level of a red flag as if you're pregnant, going to give birth and the baby is ready in 6 months. It's like, whoa, hang on. No, the 9 months is the magic area. If you're losing, like, guys, you have to understand, really fucking fantastic fat loss progress is around half a pound to a pound lost per week, averaged over months and months and months and months and months. But like, think about that. I get fired up when someone loses a half a pound a week over the course of a year. That's literally like picture perfect progress. That's absolutely amazing progress. So the fact that you're getting pissy and throwing an adult hissy fit that you're not losing 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds a week, but then the fact that like MyFitnessPal and all these other big app companies or whatever it is telling you, yeah, you can select 3 pounds a week, 3.5, 4, 5 pounds a week. That's not okay. Of course, they're going to tell you to starve. Then of course you're going to fall off, then lather, rinse, repeat. But right out the gate, that's one of my biggest issues with most of these apps is they're like, well, how fast do you want to lose it? And they give you an option of a totally unsustainable journey, if you will. And of course, it's going to fuck you up. Number 2, my other issue with apps and random formulas, it doesn't know you. It doesn't know. Yeah, I guess you technically put your occupation. Yeah, I guess you put your opinion of your activity level. But like, that's the truth, or the reality is most of these platforms, they overestimate how many calories you burn during exercise or at your job and underestimate how many calories you burn at rest. Like if you put on your Apple Watch or your Fitbit and you are sick all day and lay in bed, it will tell you burned 0 calories. But most of the calories you burn every day are by not being dead. But then if you like do 3 jumping jacks, it'll tell you burned 700 calories or something stupid. That's just not the case. This is why, like, that's a whole topic for a whole nother time. But a lot of times those are synced with your calorie tracking app, like MyFitnessPal, and it gives you calories back. And it's a mess. It's no wonder it's fucking you up. So you have to understand these apps and random algorithms don't know you, which is why working with a coach or someone who knows what they're doing is the best option for this, because we actually know you. We know what your job is. We know what your day-to-day is. We understand who you are as a person. So then we can dial someone in even better. So if you don't know yourself that well, that's why it also plays a role. Like when you like punch into MyFitnessPal and you put moderately active and all of a sudden their plan isn't working. Number 3, it's a half-ass educated guess. And most people think that half-ass educated guess is written in stone by God, right? Number 4, this is my other big issue with most apps and formulas. The more you eat, the more you lose, the less you have to eat. MyFitnessPal will watch, like if you like integrate like your, how much weight you're losing and now you weigh less, it'll tell you to eat less now. You'll lose more weight, it'll tell you to eat less. As you start to lose or plateau, it'll tell you to eat less. Then all of a sudden, that's what I call you have a race to the bottom. Excuse me, which is never sustainable. Right? MyFitnessPal is not having you do any like reverse dieting or maintenance periods or anything like that. So of course it's fucking you up. And literally as you lose more weight, if you go from 200 pounds to 190 pounds, your calorie intake drops. If you go from 190 to 180, your calorie intake drops. And then all of a sudden before you know it, you're back down to starving again. And then you fall off, regress and gain all your weight back. Not cool. So let's get in straight to the chase how we do this. So straight to the chase, here's how we do this with clients. And this is exactly what I'm going to tell you. I'm literally going to give you all the secrets. Now, fair warning, it's a lot. I'm going to explain this as easily as I can, as simply as I can, but there is a reason, people apply for coaching so you don't have to figure this shit out. I'm literally going to tell you literally the secrets. But the truth is, for most people, there's still so much uncertainty. There's so much figuring it out. There's so much second guessing. This is why, like, people ask, like, Jared, why do you give all this, like, literally the best advice you have for free on your podcast when you coach? And I go, it's because number 1, no one's going to do it. I know, like, guys, if think about it, Instagram should have put me on a business 5 years ago if that was the case, because I know first and foremost, most people are not going to do it on their own. Just out the gate. Most people will not do it. Number 2, most people are not going to value it because it's free. Like literally, I'm giving you the keys of the kingdom, so to speak. But most of you are not going to take this seriously because it's free. Versus if you paid me thousands of dollars, then of course you're going to take it seriously. But we only pay attention to what we pay for. So the fact that I'm giving you the secrets, most of you are still not going to do anything with it because it's free. And then number 3, is there's still so much figuring out and thinking that goes into this. Guys, I'm telling you, when I hire people into my life, I don't want to have to think about anything. I don't want to have to do any of the figuring out. I don't want to have to do the mental heavy work, right? I don't want any of the uncertainty and second guessing. That's when I hire mentors, because I don't want I'm overwhelmed with second guessing. So I would rather hire someone to just get me there faster in the most sustainable way possible. So that's why I'm not scared to like give you all the answers. And I also believe in abundance to the highest level. So I know I just want to help you at the end of the day. But honestly, along those lines with that though, I do have a special coaching offer, like I mentioned on the last couple episodes, for people coming from the podcast specifically. Like I'm doing some really cool stuff with the podcast right now. So if you are coming from the podcast alone, I don't have this special offer like anywhere else. So I do have a special offer in terms of those who are like really ready to get going and want to apply for coaching from here. I'm basically giving away $4,000 worth of free stuff for anyone who gets accepted into coaching from the podcast, but we'll talk about that at the end. I'll give all the details at the end of this, but let's get into actually how to go about this. So, excuse me. All right. So let's talk about this. So step one, because again, this is how we do it with clients. Step one, we need a baseline. Because again, what did I say in the beginning? My biggest issue is people going about this who have no idea what their baseline is, what they've been eating, how much they've been eating, all that stuff. So step one is get a baseline. How we get a baseline is we want to see you track 7 days, total 7 full days of eating. Don't change a damn thing. Literally just a normal day in the life of you for 7 days. Because again, for you personally, if you're like, okay, I want to calculate my calorie deficit, and let's say you're doing this on your own, you don't know what you've been eating. You don't know what your averages are. You don't know like if you've been like eating 1,200 calorie life or 3,000 calorie life, because the protocol is going to be totally different. You know what I mean? So this is why you need a baseline. Most people are blown away when they see how much they actually truly eat. I've seen so many people be jaw dropped who think they are starving themselves. And then they do their 7 days of food logs and they're just like, holy fuck, I had no idea between all my licks, tastes, bites, fast food here, just grabbing this there. Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine there. And they're like, how the fuck do I eat 3,000 calories a day when they thought they were eating 1,200? Okay. So step one is get a baseline, as in do not change a fucking thing. Don't get impatient. Track for a 7 full days of eating. Like that's the thing, including the weekends. Not 6 days, not 5 days. We'll have someone sign up for coaching and they'll like do 5 days, Monday through Friday, and then they'll like skip the weekends. It's like, oh no. We got to see what those weekends look like, because that's where you're probably losing it at. I've seen literally people who have an average of like 3,000 calorie days who thought they were eating 1,200 because of their weekend binges. All right. Step two. So after you do that, let's say you do your 7 days of food logs. We need to see what your daily average is. Okay. So all you're going to do is calculate your average of the day. So you're going to have your food logs. You're going to have Monday, this many, Tuesday, this many, Wednesday, this many, Thursday, this many, Friday, so on. 7 full days of just total calories. Now we need to see what your weekly average is. So add up all those days, divide it by 7, just normal average, and then you're going to get a number, right? You're going to get a number. So let's just say, because I have 2 avenues now. If that number is higher, on the higher side, we're just going to drop that number a little bit lower by like 300 calories or so. Boom, there's your calorie deficit. That's where you're going to start with. Now, if that number is rather lower, boom, right into maintenance period, right into a reverse diet. Then step 4 is adjust from there. That's literally how we do it with clients. It's so simple and it works every time. So let's kind of play this out. Actually, let me grab my calculator and then we'll actually do an actual one right here. This isn't in my notes or anything. So let's just say Monday is, I don't know, let's say 1,200 calories because you're being strict. Tuesday is, let's just say 1,500 calories. Wednesday is, let's say, you went out to lunch with the girls. So let's say you had some margaritas and all that stuff. Let's say that's like 3,200 calories. Thursday, let's say you went back to 1,200 because you felt bad. Let's say Friday, you're going out. Let's say that's 2,700 calories. Saturday, let's say you did, you're still doing stuff with family. So that's another 3,200. And then let's say Sunday, you're like, fuck it, I'll start over Monday. And that's another, let's say, I don't know, like 2,000 calories. That right there is about 15,000 calories. I have my phone up for those of you that are watching the video. So that's that was your daily split. So if we do the average, add those up and divide it by 7. So that the total is 15,000 divided by 7. So that's an average of 2,142. This is just an example, guys. So that's an average of about 2,100 to 2,200 calories. Well, if you think you're eating like 1200, or if you're thinking you're not eating that much, or you're like, I eat right, but I just aren't losing. Well, you're eating like 2100 calories, which is not good or bad, but like, let's say, but here's what we do. If you're like, oh shit, I didn't realize I was eating that much. Let's just drop 200 to 500 calories off of that. So you're going to go from 2100 to 18 or 1900. Run with that. And guess what? You'll lose weight. Now, right about now, people go, oh my gosh, Jared, that's so many calories. I'm like, no, it's not. You've literally been eating more than that. You literally just did the math. You were eating more than that. So you have to understand this. That's a calorie deficit from what you were eating. If you've been averaging 21 to 2200 calories and you're eating now 1800, that is a calorie deficit. You were this and now you're in a deficit. Here's what's crazy, guys. Like, this is why there's no like X much is a lot, X much is a little. People say, oh my gosh, Jared, anything over 1200 is a lot. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, that's conditioning. That's diet culture conditioning. Let that shit go. Right? If a dog was abused its whole life and now it comes to my house where it gets cuddles and treats, it's going to think that's weird too, but it's a good thing. So you have to understand, if that's you, and like that's what happens, like you do that calculation, that's what goes down. Start there. Do not play the race to the bottom. It is no like, trophy you're waving saying, look how little I eat. So that's what you're going to do, is you're going to take your baseline, 7 full days of eating, add it up, divide it by 7. That's your calorie average. Now, here's the thing. I'll even start people at that, because for most people, as soon as you start tracking a normal day in the life of you unconsciously eat less, because anything that's, monitored, it's improved. Like if you just wrote down every dollar you spend, you'd unconsciously spend less. So if that was you, I bet that's actually even a little bit less than what you're eating. A lot of clients will start them at their baseline because they unconsciously like ate less because they were tracking. But like, let's say we weren't, that's right there, 2200 calories. Now we can go to 18 or 19. Boom, fat loss will happen because you're in a deficit from what you were eating. Don't believe me? How many times have you seen someone eat down every single day or eat like an asshole, and all they do is switch from regular Coke to Diet Coke, and all of a sudden they lose a bunch of weight because they went from drinking most of their calories to just a calorie deficit. They went from what they were doing up here to a little bit less, even while eating like shit. It's because a calorie deficit is not just, yes, eating less than what you burn, but it's also eating less than what you have been eating. If you've been consistently eating 3,000 calories a day, you go into 2,500, you will lose weight. This is why if we have someone who's been like eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, we can literally have them eat an ungodly amount of food and still lose weight, so it doesn't suck. So that's how I want you to handle if the number is on the higher side, or you're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of food. Now, let's say you do that calculation and it's still 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 calories. Well, then it's time to go maintenance or reverse. Because again, we're not going to go from 1,200 calories, to 900 calories. We're not going to go from 1,400 calories to 1,000 calories. We're going to go right into a maintenance period or a diet break. Most of the time with coaching, this is what we have to do with almost all of our clients. Our very first stage in coaching is called dieting from the inside out. It's where we fix things like binge eating, emotional eating, sabotage, food relationships, all that. But it's also where we fix metabolisms. And if most people who are coming into coaching have been starving themselves. So what we also do in stage 1, while we're stopping binge eating and sabotaging, we're also fixing their metabolism and having them come out of those starving days and actually eating more food while we repair their metabolism. That way, fat loss doesn't suck. Fat loss isn't that big of a deal. That's how I would urge you to go about this. So for you, if that number is low, go right into a maintenance or reverse dieting stage. I have content on this. I won't get into all of that here. This is a video for another time, but you see what I mean. Then all you're going to do is adjust from there. That is it. Literally, like that's it. That's how we do this. That's how I would suggest if you're going to do this on your own, which if we're being honest, most of you should not. If you've been struggling for years, you are unconsciously programming yourself to continue struggling for years, which is why most people will take their same shitty year of dieting every single year until it's decades in. So, that's what I would do. Now, here's the thing. Don't assume, I have this other category here in my notes. Don't assume a few things. Number 1, don't assume like you have to go so low, right? Don't assume like you have to starve yourself. Don't assume that your calories have to go through the floor, right? A lot of people assume that they just, my weight loss is so hard for me, I've got to starve myself. Or, I'm a 4'11" female, I've got to eat very little. No, you don't. You'd be shocked. Don't make any assumptions, right? Just like you shouldn't judge a book by its cover or assume something about somebody, don't do the same thing for you in fat loss. Don't assume you have to starve yourself. Don't assume your body is predestined to store fat, so you have to starve yourself. Don't do that. Number 2, don't assume that's a lot of calories. Because what's going to happen is, even inside coaching, we get people that with this concern. We'll give someone their calorie limit and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so many calories. Well, no fucking shit. You feel like it's so many calories because you've been starving yourself for years. But ironically, you're eating a ton of what you view as a lot of calories and losing weight. The goal is to eat as much as possible while losing. We're not about diet culture here. Number 3, don't assume just anything about your numbers. Don't assume anything. I want you to come into this coachable as fuck and blank fucking slate. Don't assume anything about your numbers. What you think you eat, what you probably should eat, throw all that out the window. Number 4, don't assume you need to stay in your deficit till you lose everything, right? This isn't MyFitnessPal. This isn't Weight Watchers. This isn't all the bullshit you've been doing for years where you're just going to be starving and under eating until you lose the 80 pounds. That's not how we do this. That's literally the worst way to go about this. And the last part, number 5, don't assume you'll lose weight linearly. Don't assume you're going to lose weight every single week. Don't assume that you're supposed to lose weight just like stair stepping every single week until you hit your goal. That's not how this works at all. Okay. That's it. That's literally the nuts and bolts of this. So I really hope this episode like gets as much traction, if not more, as the last time I talked about this. I feel like I hopefully maybe explained this a little bit better. Now, here's the thing. I promise you guys, at the end, I talk about the coaching opportunity. So here's the thing. If this is helpful and you're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, and you want to run with this and go on your own, cool, more power to you. But for those of you that are like, oh shit, that's a lot of thinking. That's a lot of figuring it out. I think I'll just spiral out of control and go back to starving myself. Then this may be for you. If you got a lot of value out of this and you're like, okay, that makes sense, but I don't know how I can do that on my own. Or let's just be honest, if you don't want to do it on your own, if you don't want to think that hard, if you don't want to have to do all the mental hoop jumping, if you don't want to play the trial and error in auditing and looking at progress and making calculated decision and adjusting, that's what we do inside coaching. If you don't want to deal with that headache and uncertainty, I do have an opportunity for you. So I'm basically doing a special offer for only podcast listeners. Because again, the podcast is something I'm putting at the top of my priority list right now. And I'm rewarding podcast listeners with a lot of extra cool stuff. Because basically, long story short, and I'm not putting this anywhere else. This is not going on my Instagram or in my email list or anything like that. Basically, I'm giving away roughly, for people who get accepted into our coaching program from the podcast, I'm basically giving you guys around $4,000 worth of free stuff at no charge. Literally, like all this extra, like, don't get me wrong, coaching is fucking fantastic. But like, to make it even better, I've got $4,000 worth of free shit I'm like literally giving to those who get involved in coaching. Like that's the cool shit that's on the table. Now, here's the thing though. It's only those who get accepted to coaching from the podcast. So in order to do that, you have to apply for coaching. The way that I roll as well is there's nowhere in the world you can just go pay some dollar figure and get plugged into coaching. That's not how this works. We're picky and choosy who we work with. We only work with those we know we can help. And we want to make sure you're the right fit for our culture and what we're about here inside the coaching program. Because at the end of the day, we're not tolerating diet culture bullshit, people who are uncoachable and people who aren't willing to implement the correct strategies. That's why like people ask, like, do you ever turn people away from coaching? And I go, absolutely. So, cause like my thing is this, like that's just the name of or the nature of how we're going to go about this, because we only work with those who we know we can help and who are ready to do this. Like I always say, there's 3 things we look for in clients. We look for students, people who are willing to learn, people who are willing to unlearn all the old bullshit, and people who are coachable, willing to take feedback, and people who are willing to go back and forth and unlearning and relearning the new things and take that feedback and be willing to implement and tweak and adjust from there. So that's the thing with coaching. That's how we roll. So, basically, there's a special link in the description of this where you can actually, to be honest with you, I'm bypassing a lot of like this big questionnaire we normally do. Like out the gate, you can go right to my team's schedule. So in the comment section or in the description, there is a calendar link where you can get right to my guy, Connor. He's my right-hand guy. He's my coaching specialist who's going to basically get to know you and figure out what's going on and figure out what all you need and then decide if you're a good fit for the program or not. And then go over everything with you, answer all of your questions and make sure, the numbers make sense, make sure this is a good decision on your end and it all makes sense and you're a good fit for the program. So that's what's on the table. So you're not committing to anything by hopping on the calendar or anything like that. This is just how we start the process. But because you're coming from the podcast, there's some really cool offers that we have for you that isn't just on the internet for everyone else. So that's how to get plugged in and that's how to see about that. Let me know if this helps. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. I appreciate the fuck out of you. Thank you so much for being here. Stay tuned for the next episode and I will talk to you next time.